Yes, it's time now for episode 9 of Land of the Rising Scrum as we work our way through the 2019 Rugby World Cup, profiling each and every team in the lead up to the 2019 tournament in Japan this September. If you want to listen back to any of our previous podcasts, you can do by simply visiting the podcast section at offtheball.com, or you can check out Off the Ball's channel on YouTube to watch them all back. And just a reminder as well, our rugby coverage on Off the Ball is brought to you by Vodafone. Team of us, everyone in. Now, we've reached our final stop in Pool B. This week we're looking at Italy, a side who have played all 8 previous World Cups but have never made it through to the quarter-finals. This year, led by Irishman Conor O'Shea, once again looks a tall order for them to get out of the pool stages with games against New Zealand and South Africa, while the Azzurri will be expected to be the best of the rest in that pool when they take on Canada and Namibia. They'll be coming into that tournament, though, off the back of a winless Six Nations campaign, although they were competitive in all but one of those defeats, running Scotland, Ireland, Wales and France relatively close for much of their games. But looking ahead at the World Cup now, I have a former Italian international scrum half joining me on the line, a veteran of 42 international appearances for the Azzurri, including 3 of those at the 2007 Rugby World Cup. New Zealand born but very much Italian bred at this stage, and one of the most recognisable hairstyles, and I think a set of sideburns, as we're going to see on our Skype line now, that I think any rugby fan probably had in the mid-2000s. Welcome to the show, Paul Griffen.
Cheers, mate. How are you? Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Yeah, as I was saying there, the dreadlocks are gone. You had those in the early stages of your Italian career, but you've kept those sideburns, and I have to say they're absolutely magnificent.
Oh, mate, I've kept them. Well, you've got to keep something. You've got to be recognisable when you get out and about. But nah, they've stayed as part of the package, mate. I
can actually just see behind you in the corner there. You've is that one of your Italian jerseys framed? Is that a particular one?
That's the first ever, mate. It's the first ever one actually against England.
Six Nations, 2004, was it?
Exactly, mate. Exactly. So it's got a bit of a special place in the heart.
And as I mentioned there, you are New Zealand born. It has been, 20 years since you parked up in Italy at this stage. You're very much an Italian man. I think at this stage your family are there. You've been living there consistently for 2 decades now. Mate,
you've done your research well. It's exactly 20 years. We're on the dot. Yeah, no, but I've got two boys over here, both born here. And, we've basically we've built a house and we're just getting on with life over here and enjoying it, mate. It's completely different from what we grew up, myself and my wife from New Zealand, but the kids love it, the kids enjoy it, and at the moment that's the most important thing with what's going on.
And if you take us back 20 years, how did that all come about, moving over to Italy? Because I think it was down in Naples you started initially, not really what most people would consider to be the rugby heartland in Italy. How did you end up over there, of all places, coming from New Zealand?
Mate, long story short, basically in New Zealand I was involved with Canterbury in the early days of Crusaders. Bust my knee twice, bust my ankle, so I had basically a 20-month period where I was just doing rehab and getting myself right, and Wayne Smith said, look, head overseas and get a few minutes in your legs and then come back. So I left the 28th of October in 99 and never went back, just kind of doors open, sliding doors I suppose you could say, and I was lucky enough to have my foot in the right side of the door when it closed, and everything just rolled on from there, so it was fantastic.
And it was after, I think it was a year or so there, it was Calvisano. You moved up north towards Calvisano there after a while, and you've been pretty much in that area since. I imagine you played with Calvisano up until a few years ago?
Yeah, mate, I did. No, okay. Played 6 months down in Naples and in a second division sit team down there, and it was good fun. Naples, everyone says it's the most dangerous place in the world. Probably, you can't walk around because, people will be out there to try and get hold of all your precious belongings. But mate, I had a great time, and then we came up to Calvisano, and things just kind of rolled on, mate. And everything went with championships, with the side, with a little village. It's a little village, mate. It's not paradise, but it's got everything close that you want. You can do everything you want. Lake Garda's 20 minutes away, which is an absolutely fantastic place. I don't know if you've been there, but it's a good place to have a few pints on the lakeside and talk a bit of footy and just cruise. So no, it's been a good ride, mate. It's been a good ride, and hopefully it carries on. Obviously not playing on a playing side, but on a coaching point of view now, it's very satisfying.
Yeah, I was going to ask there, what are you up to these days? I'd seen you do a bit of media work, I think, or you previously did do a bit of media work. Is that still going on? And as you say, they're coaching as well?
Yeah, man, I do media work. I do some media work for DAZN, which they cover the Pro 14. So I do that, covering the Zebra and Treviso. Do the Six Nations with another one. It's called DMAX, which is through Discovery Channel, covering the Six Nations, which is fantastic. It's a good way to not have my wife telling me off all the time for watching too much footage during the Six Nations, during those periods there. And then obviously for work, mate, I'm with the Italian Rugby Union. I've had an under-18 academy for the last 4 years. And now from 2 weeks ago, I've basically been made redundant, and I've taken on a new role there, and I am going to specialise in scrum halves. We really want to try and inform young scrum halves from a young age and try and get them up, because obviously with Marcello Violi being injured during the Six Nations, Tito De Baldi stood up and he showed that he's still got a lot to offer too for an older statesman. But we need to work on the future. So my role for the next 2 years is to try and develop young scrum halves and really try and give them leave a mark on them too, so they can leave a mark on club rugby over here, on the Pro 14 overall, but hopefully for the national team as well.
Yeah, on the kind of the crop coming through, it did look from this year's under 26 nations and the World Championships. Well, there definitely are a couple of very good young players coming through the ranks there.
Oh, there's some good young kids around, mate. Some real good young kids around. And it's just, I think it's a big thing too. We always talk about the senior team. They struggle because they don't get the results. But with the age group stuff too, the skill level, the physical level, we can hold our own. So those kids can really grow in confidence, and hopefully they can transport that through to the franchises from next year or the year onwards.
Yeah, I'll come back to your own journey now, because, like as you mentioned, you had been in Naples. You moved up and started playing with Calvisano. At what stage did the actual thought of, oh God, I might actually end up playing for Italy at some stage here? Now, was it something in your mind early on, or was it just a couple of years in when things started improving, maybe on the pitch, where you thought, you know what, I might end up playing Test rugby out of this?
Oh, it probably got to about 2002 when the residency thing came up of 3 years being in Italy, and there was a possibility. So I thought, well, why not have a crack? And things were going well with Calvisano, and it's obviously to go to a World Cup as a rugby player too. You can't ask for much more. So I was planning to try, and while I was trying, my goal was to go to the 2003 World Cup down in Australia. Obviously I would have been 28 then, but obviously I missed out on that. And then I kind of thought that maybe the bus had passed. And then for the bad luck of Alessandro Troncone, who busted his knee in 2004. I got my chance, and things rolled from there, mate. But it was always in the back of my head to try and have a crack at it. But obviously, you've got to be in the right place at the right time and be seen by the right people. And luckily enough, that happened in 2004. And JK gave me a crack, and it was a great ride, a fantastic ride. Yeah,
did it help maybe when you first got the breakthrough that it was a fellow New Zealander, John Kerwin, who was the head coach at the time? Like, was that a nice kind of a bridge between coming into the team?
Oh, yes and no. I mean, obviously there he was under a lot of pressure as well as a coach to try and get things going. There was a big thing in Italy back in those days too, where you couldn't have too many foreigners. And I think in that team there was probably 5 Kiwis and a South African. So there was a lot of pressure on him as well. So there's a lot of added pressure on us too, especially being a debutant as well. I was coming in there, and the press weren't welcoming on having a lot of foreigners in there. So it was daunting, but it was exciting, mate. And JK was obviously a big part of that. I honestly believe for what Italian rugby's done in the years gone by, even though results maybe haven't shown, he was a big part in laying the platform for what we're seeing now.
You say there like there was a lot of pressure on the media or the kind of rugby people over there weren't entirely impressed with the idea of a lot of what we call now project players coming in. Is that still the case? Is there still a bit of it's kind of tough to find the word, but pressure, I suppose, is the right thing to say, that they kind of just want to see more of their homegrown talent coming in?
No, it's not, mate. I think the mindset has changed completely over here as well. They've seen that the guys that actually come in and they earn their stripes playing club rugby over here or playing in the franchises like the Zebras and Treviso, they integrate into the Italian system and they actually become Italian. So they're accepted a hell of a lot more than what they were, 15 years ago when I came in.
Yeah, and obviously there was extra pressure as well, because as you alluded to a couple of minutes ago, it was Alessandro Troncone you were coming in to replace while he was out. One of the absolute legends of all time in Italian rugby, and all of a sudden, not only do you have that pressure of being the New Zealander who's been brought in, but you also have some pretty huge boots to fill.
Exactly, no, mate, it was tough. It was tough. It was a thing. The comparisons were always being made. Can you do? But I've always been a bit of my own person as well. I accepted the challenge. Obviously, Tronky was around as well, and he helped me out a hell of a lot. Giving a lot of knowledge and a lot of game now, especially from international rugby, because it changes from club rugby to Heineken Cup, which we played a lot of as well. But the international level was massive. So he was a big help in me developing as well. And I think we created. It probably wouldn't have been 100% friendship, out and out, but it was a good rivalry and a good companionship to help ourselves grow. And it wasn't just for us individually, but it was obviously for Italian rugby. And through there now too, I know him down at the Zebras now. He was involved with the national team. I think he's going to be back involved as well with the national team. He's been a massive part of my growth, and obviously of Italian rugby's growth as well, especially for what he's done on the field. 100, I think it was 103 caps over a very long span of time, over the changing of rugby too, from amateurism to professionalism and doing all that stuff too. He's seen everything.
I was reading as well, and you were talking about leading up to your debut, and you were talking about learning the national anthem, and how when it actually came down to it, you had the whole thing learnt off, and it just didn't come out of your mouth.
It did come. Well, it came out. It was in my head. It was there. But basically, I had a South African guy, Roland Di Marinho. We debuted together, and we were roommates the week before, and we were shitting ourselves, mate. We were absolutely shitting ourselves of honouring the Italian Jersey by singing the national anthem. So I had a Discman back in the day, and we had a CD. We had the national anthem loaded onto this disc, and every night in our room we'd lie side by side on the beds and sing the Italian national anthem 10 times. And it got to the point, I suppose it's like a lot of people when you get to a big event, you freeze. And I wouldn't say I froze, but my lips were moving, but nothing was coming out of my mouth.
As you got on in your career, were you able to get the words out of your mouth?
Oh, mate, easy. I love it now. It pumps you up, mate. It pumps you up.
So on 2004, and as we say, that jersey from the game against England is behind you, but you got your first win in 2004 as well against, it was Scotland 2004.
Against Scotland on my wife's birthday, it was.
Oh, great birthday present as well. What kind of a great feeling was that? Because at that stage, I think it might have only been Italy's maybe third or something like that win since they joined up in the Six Nations.
Yeah, I think it was. No, it was massive, mate. It was massive. I mean, we were at Stadio Flaminio. The expectations weren't high from the public or from the press, but we'd actually gone to France the week before, and we lost to France up there. I think it was 20-0. But there's a famous Christophe Dominici dropped the ball over the line, trying to be a smart ass. And obviously we've been pounded by England. They were the world champions, obviously, from 2003 in Australia. We've been pounded by England at Flaminio 2 weeks previously. So we got down there, mate. It was a fantastic game. I think Fabio Ongaro, the biggest head in world rugby, scored a try. Castro was there pushing him over as well, and we had a good team, mate, in that years too. Obviously JK was there, Glenn Eller was across too, so he helped us out. He helped form our attack to the Australian Wizards. So it was a massive game. It was a massive time, and I don't think we realised how important it was until probably a week afterwards, because there was a lot of, I think, rugby around Italy at that time took a bit of a boom because one result made people realise that we weren't that far off at that stage.
And then the few years developed and you were playing away, but 2007 Rugby World Cup arrives, and this is what we're talking about here. It's looking back on the memories of the tournaments gone by. Is 2007 a tournament you'd kind of look back on with regret, because you were beaten by Scotland 18-16 in the Six Nations previous to it? You'd won 2 games during that tournament. You'd beaten Scotland in that as well, and beaten them comfortably during that tournament. Yeah. And even I remember leading up to the World Cup, you were in pretty decent form. Almost got a first win in Ireland against Ireland. In
Belfast, I remember that too. I do remember that. Mate, the World Cup, result-wise, it was very disappointing. Obviously, we didn't play our best rugby. We had a massive build-up to the World Cup. We went up to Poland, to Spawa, up to the famous cryo chambers.
Oh, yeah. The Welsh love them. The Welsh absolutely love them.
Yeah, I remember in the day, I think Wasps were up there as well, and they won the Heineken Cup. And then Ireland were up there for a while as well. So we went up there too, and it was interesting, I could say. I won't say anything else, but it was very interesting. We got to the World Cup, and I think we'd burnt ourselves out on the preparation, but we got there and we didn't play attractive rugby. We didn't face the haka against the All Blacks the first game, which was a horrible thing as a Kiwi, but I think as a sports person in general, it's one of those things that you have to face and you have to man up to. And then from there, we struggled against Portugal. We beat Romania, and then against Scotland, we had everything going for us, and we just couldn't quite get over the line. So it would have been a massive thing for us rugby-wise, but it was a tournament where I think maybe our preparation was a bit wrong. Mm-hmm.
Looking back with hindsight as well, obviously, as we were doing there, not facing the haka, when you look at the scoreline they put on you as well, probably wasn't the wisest decision in the world.
No comment, mate, no comment. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Was there a bit of debate in the squad about whether or not to face it? Because as you say there, you're kind of saying it's something you just have to do. Were there a few players back and forth on it?
there was a lot of talk about it. We won't go into detail, but there was a lot of talk about it, and it was advised that we shouldn't face it because we didn't want to fall into the hype. But there was, I will say myself, I was against it completely.
Yeah. After that tournament, it looked like your international career had kind of ended really for a while at that stage. You'd been out of the team, but called back in by Nick Malley a couple of years later. Was it great to kind of just get one final shot and get those last few caps and put 2007 behind you?
Yeah, it was, mate. I mean, after the World Cup, I was old by then. I was 32, going on 33, and Nick said, look, we want to work on some young guys. I was like, that's fantastic. Do what you got to do. If you ever need anything, I'm around. And then it got to a point where there's a lot of injuries, and they put Murray Bergamasco at scrum half against England at Twickenham. And unfortunately for Murray, and he's been a great player as well. He's done so many things, and I think it was a game which it wasn't correct for him. There was no way that he should be evaluated on his Test career from that one game. But after that final whistle, I got a phone call, and they said, "Look, are you available?" And I was happy as Larry. So we jumped on the train, mate, down to Rome. And originally, I was only going to be on the bench. There was another young fellow called Giulio Tonelato, who was supposed to start. And we done training and bits. And then Nick said, "Look, you're going to start, mate. You're going to go." And I was lucky enough to start the whole four. And at the age of 34, going on 35, mate, it was pretty exciting.
And as you mentioned there, Mauro Bergamasco going in at scrum half in that game, was that something maybe like in the dressing room? Was it something you were constantly reminding of him? Was it a bit of a joke, or was he kind of feeling a little bit prickly after it?
Mate, I wasn't there obviously during that game, but afterwards, I had a few jokes with him, and then he does a bit of the media stuff with me as well, so it comes out every now and again. It comes out as a bit of a joke between us, but I think it hits him quite deep, mate.
Yeah, I think you probably need to know him well enough to be making those jokes.
Yeah, exactly. So something you can spit out of the pub and anywhere in Ireland.
Italy in general, though, they're kind of in this tough position, I've always found. Over the last few tournaments, they've pretty much beaten the teams that they've been expected to beat, and they've lost to the teams that they've kind of been expected to lose against. How difficult is it for a team like Italy to just break that glass ceiling and make the breakthrough? And how long away possibly is it? Is it something that we could see, like, it's difficult to see at this World Cup, New Zealand and South Africa in with them? Is something who's looking for 4 years, or is this a long-term thing entirely?
Oh, it is difficult, mate, and that's the big question, obviously, that's being asked over here as well. When will we turn the corner? We look now at Argentina, what they've done over the last 4 years. We look at Scotland, what they've done in the last 3 or 4 years as well. They've all turned a corner. They've all made themselves very, very competitive, and they get results. I think at Italy, and you hit it in the first thing you said too. During the Six Nations, Italy in 4 of the 5 games were very, very competitive. It comes down to those little instances, those little micro skills, those little micro moments where you can score, or you either score or you don't, or you concede or you don't. And at the moment, we just got those little details which are hindering the results, we'll say. I think the substance and the contents of what we've got are fantastic. Obviously, with Conor O'Shea coming in too, it's been a big part as well. But this World Cup, all the World Cups, mate, are very tough. They are very, very tough. And I think with the preparation that they've accepted to play, obviously, against Ireland, France, and England before the World Cup, they know that the World Cup pool's going to be very tough with the South Africa and the All Blacks. So I think they're trying to prepare themselves as much as they can to get as much out of those preparation games to try and spring a surprise against South Africa like they did in Florence a couple of years back.
On Conor O'Shea, he's someone we would have had on the show a few times over the last few years, talking about how he's getting on in Italy. What is the general kind of consensus on the job he's doing with the side at the moment?
The general thing is, mate, he speaks worse Italian than me, so that's good.
That's funny, because I had seen him speak Italian before, and I was looking on going, God, it's actually really impressive how well he's speaking Italian.
No, mate, it's actually quite funny. We catch up every now and again just through the media stuff and that too. And I always said to him, he said, how did you learn Italian? I said, mate, if I didn't know a word, I just invented it. There's a lot of words that have been invented. So he started doing that as well, actually. I've seen a couple of interviews where he just chucked a word in there which means absolutely nothing, but it just flows. That's fantastic. No, but he's made a big difference, mate. He's made a massive difference in everything he's done over here so far.
And do you think that long term, is he someone that you think Italy can keep for the long term for another World Cup cycle?
I think he's someone that Italy need to keep.
Yeah.
I don't know if they want to keep or what they, if they should, but they need to keep him. They need to have a bit of continuity in there and the way and the guys that give the input to the team. They had 4 years with John Kirwan, 3 years with Pierre Bizier, 2 years with Jacques Brunel. Then Pierre Bizier was in there as well. They need to. I believe, the teams that are successful have coaches for long terms, and they can implement what they want to do, game plan. They can work on those micro skills, like I was saying. They can work on development of players and getting the best out of them. And I think at the moment, with the work Connor's done, he's getting a lot more out of players than what they've given in years gone by. And I think that comes down to, obviously, the coaching stuff that he's got around him as well, but also comes down to his man management skills, mate. He's very good at stimulating and getting the best out of people.
Mm-hmm. At a certain point, though, if things don't really happen over the next 2-3 years, do you have to kind of start worrying maybe about the progress that Italy are making? When you see how quickly the rest of Europe are catching up, Georgia would be the notable one, but you also have countries like Spain, Germany, who are actually making really big waves over the last few years.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is worrying, but at the same time too, we've looked at the picture as well. If we play in the Six Nations, so we play five of the five best teams in Europe. November, we always accept the All Blacks, or South Africa, Australia, plus Argentina, and one other nation, which is possible, it's beatable, like you were saying, at a World Cup, we get two that we can beat, two that we can't. And then in June, we head down to Australia, Argentina, and Fiji or something. So, basically out of 10 games or 10 or 11 tests in a calendar year, there's probably, being honest, there's probably 2 or 3 games that we can actually really, really have a good chance of winning. And the other ones there, like you said, during the Six Nations, we're very competitive. And if we can get a couple of those results, things can turn. But I think it's important that we try and get games against, with all respect, teams like Canada, America, Russia, like the pre-season World Cup, Romania, Georgia as well. In November at Georgia last year, we played in November down in Florence. And there's a lot of pressure on there. Obviously, there's all talk about the Six Nations and did we merit our spot. And I think we put a lot of demons to rest there. It was a great performance in the first 20 minutes, and then we closed it off in the last half an hour. There was a bit of a dead patch in the middle half an hour, but it got to a point where we were controlling the game and things worked out really well. So I think it's, and it as well, it's all about getting on a roll, getting a couple of wins, getting your confidence up, and being backing yourselves. And I think, with playing against England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and France in the Six Nations, the rankings, I don't think are true to where Italian rugby is at the moment. I don't think we're 14th or 15th in the world. I'm not going to say we're in the top 10, but I think, we could take off 2 or 3 spots on there, and that would be a true indication of where Italian rugby is at the moment.
What is the general popularity of rugby in Italy?
It's growing. It is growing. I think Treviso made a massive part in that this year as well, with what they've done. There was a lot of talk. There's a lot of coverage over here. You can imagine with soccer too, there's a pink paper called the Gazzetta dello Sport, and there's about 60 pages of soccer, 1 page of basketball, and about 3 lines of rugby. And during Treviso, during last year's campaign, the Pro 14, there's probably 2 pages of rugby, and 1 page was completely dedicated to Treviso, a little bit on the Zebras, and then everything else. So, their input last year has helped people get close to rugby and become more passionate about it. But during the Six Nations, and you probably saw it during the Six Nations last year, people are getting a bit annoyed because results aren't coming, so they're not going to the stadiums.
In terms then of the actual chances of Italy at the World Cup, how are you feeling? We mentioned New Zealand and South Africa. It's difficult to see a shock being caused there. Do you think there is a chance of a shock maybe against South Africa even?
Mate, you never know, eh? You never know. I mean, 3 years ago when they beat them down in Florence, we never have said it. We got close to a lot of big teams. So you never know. World Cup, and I know I talked to a couple of the boys yesterday. They're in training at the moment. They're in training camps, and they're building up to it. They're building through it nicely. Getting ready for the first date against Ireland on the 10th of August. But they're just slowly going through their processes and building up to it. So I know that they've got their plans and they've got their structures in place. So I'm hoping, mate. I really am hoping, because it'll be a massive thing for us. But as you know too, South Africa at World Cups, they never fall over and they never go to sleep. They've won 2 World Cups, and since they've been put back into the Rugby Championship as well, and then it starts in a couple of weeks' time. It'll be huge to see how they go and what players they pick.
You mentioned there as well, playing at the World Cup. Just how much of a big deal is that? You had played a few years in the Six Nations. You had missed out maybe, and you just didn't quite get through to get there for 2003. To be playing there in 2007, just going out there onto the pitch for a first game of it, does it feel completely different to anything you'd played in the previous kind of 3 years?
It's amazing, mate. It is amazing. It's amazing just to be. It's probably not so much going onto the pitch; it's just being named actually in the squad to go and participate in the World Cup. And then obviously, you get your chance on the field on that. But it's amazing, mate. It's like any other game, but it's just got something special because it's like going to the Olympics as an athlete or going to a soccer World Cup as a soccer player. You're going to the pinnacle of your sport, and mate, it is very, very special.
And final question: when New Zealand do play Italy in September this year, who are you going to be rooting for?
Hey, oh man, I won't watch it.
Completely down the middle, yeah?
No, mate,
you're not leaving anyway?
Obviously, no, mate. I'll be on the fence, mate. But obviously, it's a horrible question. Go next one.
Next one was actually were you there actually in 2016 when Italy beat South Africa? That was one thing I meant to ask there a second ago.
Yeah, I was, mate. We're doing the TV coverage, and I was down on the sideline doing the pre-game, half-time, and post-game stuff, and it was huge. It was huge. I think I lost my voice completely. Then the Italian players invaded the studio. Mate, it's fantastic. It was magic. It was a magic moment, and I think it's one of those big moments that Italian rugby obviously want to aspire to do more frequently.
Okay, Paul, we'll leave it there, and hopefully you might make up your mind on that Italy-New Zealand one by the time the tournament rolls around. Thanks a million for joining us.
Cheers, mate. Hey, thank you very much.